Hey guys, welcome. I am Matt Chico from Pop Horror Review the Movie Podcast, and today I'm gonna try and do these weekly box office breakdowns. So, welcome to my first ever box office breakdown. There's some things to talk about. Let's just jump into the domestic first. Spider-Man: No Way Home for the fourth week is number one movie with a little over $32 million. It only dropped 42%, which is pretty decent, but it really hasn't had any competition. And I do want to talk about Spider-Man a little bit later because it is literally just climbing the charts. I want to talk about where I think it's going to end up. Number two, Sing 2 with $11.5 million. It just passed the $100 million milestone and the first animated movie during the pandemic to hit that milestone. Number three, the box office bomb, that is the 355. I'll put my review down below if you want to see it, because it makes sense why it's this amount of money with 4.6 million. I think it's a number of things. One, the new path to streaming. It's definitely going to be able to watch. I don't know if it's PVOD or on Peacock within 45 days. There's nothing really. If the reviews were like, "Oh my God, I can see it making more money," but the predictions weren't even the estimates for the studios wasn't even that high. I mean, it didn't even hit $5 million for the whole weekend. It's crazy. But also there's Omicron that could be a factor into it, and it could be bad reviews, Omicron, and then 45 days. I think that is truly the reason why it did so low. You really can't pluck out one specific reason. Then there's number four, The Kingsman, $3.2 million. Then we have American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story, surprisingly doing very well with 2.4 million, but also like overall 18 million. I mean, this is big for the directors, Andrew and John Irwin, who are big Christian film directors. So it's a pretty big thing that these movies are doing so well, because usually they don't do as well, I think, as this one is doing, especially during a pandemic, you know? And then we're going to switch over to the worldwide box office now with, it's sort of the same, just with a couple taken out, added in. Spider-Man: No Way Home topped the list, over $97 million. Another weekend big draw. Like, this movie is just dominating right now. It's crazy. Like, back to the domestic really quick. Some movies during the pandemic couldn't even make that its entire run, and it made that in its fourth weekend. So it just shows that these big movies, I think, always have a place at the box office. What else has a place at the box office? Now that we're getting past, we're still in the pandemic and streaming's becoming a big thing and waiting for movies. So following Spider-Man, number two is Sing 2 with a little over $29 million. The Kingsman is number three with $16.6 million. Then a movie for a foreign film from China called Embrace Again hit the worldwide charts for $10.9 million. And then The Matrix, which has left the top five in domestic, is back in the worldwide with $9.5 million, which isn't great either. For worldwide, I mean, talk about a box office fail. I mean, domestically only hit $34.3 million. That is, for a Matrix sequel, that's pretty bad. And then international has 90 for a worldwide total of 124 million, but like, it's a Matrix movie. Like, the budget itself was 190 million, plus add advertising, marketing. You think, what could this have made if it was strictly in theaters? So I want to see now going forward with Warner Brothers, now that they're not doing the HBO Max day and date release. I want to see, how does it do now with just 45 days? Because this could have been a different number if The Matrix was strictly in theaters for 45 days and then later. Because people have gotten comfortable sitting in their homes and watching movies, and nowadays people have really good home theaters. I want to go back now to Spider-Man: No Way Home, because it's just climbing. I want to talk about where I think this is going to end up around. If you look at the all-time domestic charts, it is currently at number 6. It's past Titanic, it's past Jurassic World, the first Avengers, and it's only 10 million away from Avengers: Infinity War. It's going to hit that. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this movie in its fourth week has made 30. It's not like just going to stop and not make $10 million. What the challenge is going to be is hitting Avatar with 760. I have to see, because now more movies are coming out week by week and it's losing competition. So I have to see Maybe with this, maybe if it gets a Best Picture or if it gets a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars, which I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's also not out of the question. It could pull a Black Panther and do it. I think if it gets that, it can go over Avatar because now it has that it has the buzz again that it had in the beginning, being like, oh my God, I got nominated for an Oscar, and you're going to see people watching it. But I just saw online that it might be coming to PVOD around the end of February. So, because once it hits that, it's probably going to drop significantly. But there's Sing 2 that's now on PVOD for $25. So, I mean, I don't know if people are choosing that because it is expensive to rent. It still made $11 million. So, and Spider-Man's a much bigger movie, so maybe it can do that. I don't think it's coming for Endgame and the Star Wars: The Force Awakens. It's not making over $900 million world domestically, and it's not making 800 because it hasn't even hit 700. And now it's the end of we're getting towards new movies coming out every week, and they're going to be bigger movies. It's just not going to happen, and I don't think it's going to have that slow burn like a Greatest Showman Avatar effect because it had such a big opening in the beginning. Now going to the all-time worldwide charts, I mean, it cracked the top 10, which I expected, but I don't know where in the top 10 is really going to go. Right now, it's at number 8, and it passed Fury 7, it passed the original Avengers, it passed Frozen 2. It made 97 worldwide altogether this weekend. It makes 50 next week. I don't know. I think it can definitely get very close to 2 million. I think it can hit 2 million. I wouldn't be surprised by that, but I do think it has the potential to fall off right before 2 million because that needs another $500 million. So that's a good chunk of money. So I'm not 100% sure, but I wouldn't be. It's not out of it. It's not like DOA. It could hit that. Normally, this movie was expected to do all this, but because of the pandemic, everyone's just so shocked of its continued success. So I think that's why it's always like surprising because I think if it would have came out in 2019, people would have been like, wow, like this is good. And like it's making a shit ton of money. But like because of the pandemic, 100 million things couldn't even make. It has a $668 million domestic. Things couldn't even make that worldwide. So to have that now during a pandemic is wild. So it's just like, that's why it's so big. Just because of what the numbers is doing in a pandemic. So really, I mean, like to sum it up, we had a continued success for Spider-Man: No Way Home. We had 2022's first box office bomb, which were we surprised? See my review, and I was not. Couldn't even hit 5 million. Next week, it could be a big one. Next week, it really depends on people's comfort level with going to the theaters with Omicron and stuff like that. We have Scream 5, what is called Scream, coming out next week, and that's a big movie. Like that, this is a big movie that I don't think it's going to draw Spider-Man: No Way Home numbers in the slightest, but it is a movie that has a big fan base. It's the first one without Wes Craven. I think people it's getting good reviews on Twitter right now. The Rotten Tomatoes score has not dropped yet, but people are excited to see it. The fourth one came out over a decade ago. It's a big movie, not at the level of Spider-Man: No Way Home, but it's a big movie right now. And it's saying 35 to 40 million. It's hard to say because I feel like, but I'm biased because my brother is a huge Scream fan, so I always hear about it. So I'm thinking it's going to make more. But even with 35 to 40 million, it's the biggest in the franchise, which is a good thing even during the pandemic. I think it could hit 40. It's just hard to, it's so hard to just like be like, oh, that's right, that's what it's going to do, because the pandemic can just be like, if people are scared because of Omicron, boom, like they're not going. But I feel like it's going to be a younger crowd because it's like a horror movie, but I also think you have an older crowd, but not the older crowd that's not going because of the pandemic, but an older crowd because of the fan base. So people may be still going and just wearing a mask and still going. So we'll have to see next week. But that's the big movie next week is Scream. So I'm excited. I'm going to have a review for it. So make sure to check out for that. That is this week's box office breakdown. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you later. Cheers.